G'day everyone, Jason Nunn, Fisherman's Warehouse, Tuckerwood, Marks Point. This Friday's fishing report. Beautiful blue sky, a little bit of a west-southwest here, and we're just down Lake Macquarie, the backdrop. I reckon this is where it's all going to happen this weekend. You've got some great tides this weekend as well, guys. Tomorrow morning, around about 8:45, a nice lazy tide, around about 1.5 metres, and of course the low coming through at 2:15. A new moon kicks in tomorrow as well. That is really the peak of the fishing. Bit of some results from last weekend. Obviously, a fair bit of hype I was picking up on myself in regard to the amount of snapper that should have been off the coast. They were very, very patchy, guys. Like some of the guys who went to Port Stephens caught some very nice fish, and some of the guys who went south, I spoke to one of the regulars only 2 days ago, travelled south, just down towards Nora. First drop, a 6.5 kilo snapper, never not another one, not even a squire, but bag limit catches of trag all the way up the coast. Some big trag in that slightly deeper water there. Fish up to around about 72 centimetres, but that is what most of the photographs that were sent in this week were basically based around. Bag limit catches of trag. When you get up towards Redhead Dudley area, you've really got to weed through them. There's a lot of fish, 38.5, 40, but then you just got to keep on weeding them through. But you're not even putting the numbers of these fish down by just keep on returning them in. Normally, in years gone by, if you return to trag to the water, they just shut down and go off the bite. At the moment, the more you put back, the better the bite comes on. So when you start to catch these fish, just don't start to throw some in the box immediately. I would give it a bit of time and just see what size of fish you can get and try to get those better quality fish, because there's definitely some beautiful trag in on the inshore reefs. And of course, tomorrow will be absolutely perfect for that type of fishing. Still some very big bonito around, I might add. Still a lot of tailor offshore. And even though we haven't got that big class of red in on the coast at the moment, there's plenty of smaller fish. Those fish, 32s to 45s, but reasonable numbers. And again, this weekend we're proving perfect. Haven't heard a lot about out wide. I just looked at the sea surface chart before coming down. The temperature on the shelf has dropped down around about 20.6 degrees, and the current's coming in on a bit of an angle, like a bit of an easterly angle. It's just spinning off those big eddies out there at the moment. I think the game season pretty much off our coast is pretty much done and dusted, but down the track, once we just keep an eye on what's going on, we should start to see a few yellowfin. I know a couple of the guys made mention they may go to the FAD tomorrow and have a bit of a look at some dolphin fish. It's been pretty good on dolphin fish out there, but just this water temp, guys, has just started to come off fairly quickly now. You may get a couple, but just remember, don't expect too much on that situation. I'd more take some snapper gear for that deeper water. The wind will pick up a little bit on Sunday, guys, so you need to be aware of that. That west-northwest will certainly kick in, and there's a bit of a swell coming Monday. But as we get into next week, if you're looking for a midweek fish, Tuesday, but Wednesday next week is another cracker. So tomorrow, the pick this weekend, and definitely Wednesday next week. But you've just got to get out here. I think even when the wind blows, and if it does get up on Sunday, it's not going to stop what's happening in the lake here at the moment. The tailor are just going gangbuster. A lot of guys in there this afternoon, a lot of guys getting those Rapala tail dancers, and they have worked incredibly well over the last few days. In and around Belmont Bay, back over towards Coal Point. There's a lot of fish up towards Carey Bay. And of course, the triangle that's set up behind me here, Coal Point to Fishing Point to Wangi Point, that triangle there is holding stacks of bait, but some very, very good tailor. I know young Patrick Nunn and of course Alex, my co-pilot here, did a mysterious test run this week, testing a boat out to make sure it was performing well. Test run took about an hour and a half, surprisingly enough. They came back with a cracking tailor up to around about 55 centimetres on that test run. Obviously, they landed in my box, which was obviously the benefit of the test run. But that just goes to show you, in very short time, the quality of the fish that you can get out here at the moment. Those tailor are throughout the lake. A lot of smaller fish, but there's a real blend. I mean, as Alex was in, there's 55 centimetre fish, there's 35s. They're all in between. They're just not big and or little. You've just got to weed them through. And again, bag limit catches of tailor will be definitely achieved over this period. Still a lot of very, very good mulloway, definitely around that Coal Point area and back into Rathmines. A lot of bait stacked up there. But the numbers of flathead this week, talking to Pete Hopkins this week, he got some beautiful flathead over here on the weekend. And in fact, he was in earshot of another guy and he watched the other fella catch 3 mulloway in a very short period of time. So these schools of fish that we're seeing and working this bait, and I've said it many times, guys, work the bait school that looks the worst. Don't just go and find the best bait school you can physically find and stay on it. It's got to be getting crashed and bashed by these tailor. They're the guys that are helping us. They're busting it up, they're moving it out, and you'll watch these tailor just periodically push the bait to the surface and smash it to pieces. If you've got a chrome lure ready, you've got to get in there before the birds hit the surface. Once the birds are on the surface, the tail already down, and then they're moving around, so they're moving quite quickly. So you've got to be prepared to move around. But again, I think trolling the tail dancers, putting one long and one short, and getting out here and working this area, it's going to be perfect. And again, right the way down the back of Pulborough over towards Shingle Splitters Point, there's a lot of fish over there at the moment. There's been quite a few reds caught in that southern end of the lake, some very, very good fish, 45s to 55 centimetre, and floating bait, just floating bait pilchards, half slimies, half pillies, but just floating bait down a burley trail is working very, very well. Got some good reports of bream. I know Ronnie Owen had a fish in the channel, one big salmon, but don't get too carried away, guys, because there was only one salmon. There's not numbers of salmon there yet. When they come, I'll certainly keep you updated. There's definitely a sprinkling of salmon on the beach, but what Ron found was some very, very good bream, and bream up to 43 centimetres fishing the evening, and that has been the key if you're going to start to fish in the lake. Very early in the morning, the bite comes on and then turns off quite quickly. You've got to fish the evening into the night. Again, those oily-based baits are proving very well. The beaches, look, they've started to sort themselves out, although today, I actually just come back from Malabula. There is quite a bit of swell still coming in on that Stockton Bight area, so as you get up towards the middle of the beach, and certainly on the island at the moment, still the remnants of that swell. It will start to abate quite quickly, but again, that little spike on Monday, just to be aware. So look, guys, the beaches aren't so bad, and that tide isn't, that little making tide just on dark. Tailor, few salmon, and of course quite a few bream. For those that are keen, obviously we've got a few tubies in, of course, today. There's still a few whiting the flats, but again, just don't expect much. I reckon this weekend, it's all going to happen here, and that's the best part about lake fishing. It's an all-weather opportunity to get out there. If the wind blows 20 knots, it's simple. You just get on the western side of the lake, and there's just plenty of protection on that side of the lake. Guys, I'll catch you next Friday when hopefully the weather still will be fine, and we'll be talking plenty more about fishing. On a sad note, obviously, I spoke to Simon Walker last Friday, and it appears that the Herald has dropped out their regular fishing report. And I reckon that fishing report's been going for 30 plus years, so it was a pretty sad day when we lose contact. But guys, I'll start to sort of just expand my reports a little bit more to help some of the guys that are fishing in the Hunter River and certainly up around Stockton up towards the bay. I definitely know there's still plenty of longtail up the bay, and of course there's been some beautiful snapper caught up in that region. The harbour itself, it's still producing a few fish, but it is getting quite cool, but definitely good for bream and definitely good for a few flatties. Guys, I'll see you next Friday where we'll do a bigger coverage. See you then.